What's up, you guys? My name's Monsel. I'm with Nootropedia, and today we're going to talk about a topic that I don't have a lot of personal experience with, but I really empathize with those who do. We're going to talk about nootropics for depression. So clinical diagnosis of depression is a huge problem, and in fact 7% of Americans suffer from a diagnosis of depression, and there are approximately 350 people across the globe who suffer from depression. Now, I first want to add a disclaimer that if you feel you might have depression or you've been diagnosed with depression, that it's a really good idea to speak with a doctor about any of the things that I'm mentioning in this video. I'm not a doctor, I don't have a research degree, and so a lot of this is just my own interest in the things that I've found on different studies. Depression is a serious condition, and for many people it's not just a feeling of sadness, it's a biochemical difference in some people versus others that needs to be treated with some kind of medical support. But my suggestion is, if you are going to see a doctor, try to find someone who has experience in alternative medicine or some Eastern medicine as well. Here in Austin, Texas, there's tons of different practitioners of Eastern medicine, different modalities that can help you without some of the more intense and kind of invasive pharmaceutical drugs. So a lot of the prescription drugs are SSRIs, or serotonin selective reuptake inhibitors, and I'm not a huge fan of SSRIs. I don't really think that they work all that well, and I think most of the time it's kind of overkill when you could use some other methodologies. Now guys, depression can be caused by a number of different things, and in our modern environment, especially living in an urban environment, we are very separate from our ancestral roots. We're very separate from the type of lifestyle that we would have had for millions of years as a tribe. And because of this difference, there are plenty of things we can do with our lifestyle that can impact any kind of symptoms of depression without actually taking a substance. I call this Beyond the Pill, and Beyond the Pill is actually an entire section of my softcover book, Ahead Above, which if you want, you can pick it up for free. Just click on the link above and you'll be taken to get the softcover for free. But Beyond the Pill refers to these different lifestyle changes we can make in order to improve our symptoms of depression. Now stick with me if you're looking for specific supplements. I'm going to get to those, but first let's talk about these lifestyle habits, and one of them is relationships. Relationships are some of the most important things because feeling supported, feeling a part of a group is in our DNA. We evolved as a tribe, and if you've read the book by Sebastian Junger about tribe, then you'll notice that depression rates in the Western world, in places like America, have actually gone up, whereas there are other regions like Nigeria where people are still stricken by poverty and yet they're part of a tribe, and so depression rates have not gone up in the same way. The nuclear family is great, but in America, especially in some of our day-to-day jobs, we can spend an entire day walking next to people, being around people, but not actually connecting with any of these people as part of our tribe. And that's a huge psychological problem that can lead to biochemical changes and can definitely contribute to depression. So another lifestyle change that you can make to improve symptoms of depression is simply getting outside. Vitamin D, which comes exclusively from sunlight, is a precursor for creating serotonin in the brain. Now, most people might make that connection with depression, serotonin, and SSRIs, and a lack of serotonin without enough sunlight. And today, if you're in the office, if you're sitting at the desk working all day, there's a good chance you're not getting enough sunlight. So just go for a walk every once in an hour or so and get a little bit of sunlight here and there. It doesn't really take that much, but it can have a big impact on your vitamin D levels and your serotonin production, which obviously influences depression. Now the final piece, and I know this is going to get a little bit off topic or off track when we're focused on nootropics, but it's near and dear to my heart because I try to help you guys in all different ways, not just with nootropics or supplement advice. And the final thing that you can, really contemplate with depression is this concept of sadness. And sometimes sadness and feeling depressed become conflated together. together and people consider themselves depressed when in reality they're just sad. And sadness isn't necessarily a biochemical problem that needs to be corrected, but rather an emotion or a feeling that may be painful, it may be uncomfortable, but it's something that is totally natural. It's part of the grieving process, and it's something that even if we can't necessarily embrace it, we should try to simply let it be as it is. And making a distinction between sadness and depression is really important, because if every time you feel sad you go to some of the pills and the nootropics that I'm going to talk about next, then it's going to create some dependencies, some problems for you, because it's not really coming from the right place. So we don't want to use these nootropics to avoid pain. We want to optimize ourselves, and sometimes sadness and being with that sadness is part of optimizing our human experience. So I'm going to go through 5 separate nootropics that can improve symptoms of depression. And of course, the first one that I'm going to start with is St. John's Wort. And St. John's Wort is a natural compound that's been used for hundreds of years. And in a meta-analysis, which is a study that looks at all the different studies in the field, they took 29 different trials and about 5,500 patients, and they found that St. John's Wort was as effective as SSRIs, pharmaceutical drugs, but without the side effects. That's really important. It had all the same benefits on average of the SSRI pharmaceutical drugs, much cheaper, but more importantly, there's fewer side effects. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of St. John's Wort. Of course, there are side effects, and it might not be powerful enough for certain people, so it's definitely something to speak with your doctor about. Now, the second nootropic is fish oil. And the reason fish oil is so effective for treating depression is that it actually helps with neurogenesis on certain regions of the brain, like the hippocampus, which can help to improve symptoms of depression. In fact, Dr. Brant Courtwright, during my Brain Optimization Summit, told me that one of the reasons SSRIs work at all is because they actually can help to improve neurogenesis in the same region. And that's why people see the benefits over time of taking an SSRI. But you can actually get that same experience using fish oil. Now, I'd be remiss without saying that the third nootropic is a combination of psychedelics and entheogens, namely psilocybin, LSD, and ayahuasca. Now, all of these have a ton of different benefits for creativity, for improving neuroprotection, etc. But if you look at the actual scientific literature, all of them are primarily focused on depression and anxiety. Now, something you need to be aware of is some of these things might be questionable from a legal sense, but more importantly, you need a safe space if you're going to utilize any of these compounds, because they can be really impactful for your brain, and you want to have a safe environment to do them. Now, number 4 is Gotu Kola, and this is an Ayurvedic herb that's been used for thousands of years. It's one of the most important Ayurvedic herbs for improving physical and mental performance, and there are some studies that show it can actually improve the symptoms of depression by anywhere between 10 to 21.8%. So these are really impactful reductions in depression symptoms, and for some people who want just broad-scale cognitive enhancement, Gotu Kola is a perfect, very safe nootropic option. Now, the final choice is vitamin D, and a lot of people, even if they do get out a lot, they get a lot of sunlight, they might not be in a region where the altitude is right for getting that vitamin D. So my recommendation to you is, if you're going to be in a northern climate, consider whether you get enough vitamin D and try and get a supplement in, especially during the winter. If you are living in a northern climate and you don't have the vitamin D, could be a problem for your depression. Anyway, guys, I hope that's been helpful. Like I said, there are 5 different nootropics that you can use to improve symptoms of depression. There are numerous others that can impact depression as well if you're deficient in certain minerals and vitamins, but those are some basic nootropics and some lifestyle changes that you might be able to make to help you overcome any of the problems that you're having. But like I said in the past, you really want to speak to a doctor if you are planning on using some of these things, and try and create a safe space with any of the psychedelics or entheogens that you decide to use. Anyway, guys, if you have depression, I hope this has been helpful. I hope some of you can take some value from this, and I will see you next time.